Hello and welcome to Sustainability Matters. I'm Agatha Afemike, your host. On this show, we delve into latest developments and innovative solutions in sustainability. Each episode will bring you expert insights, impactful stories, and practical tips to help you make a difference. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Hello everyone, good day and welcome to another episode of Sustainability Matters. Today we have a very interesting guest with us, Seun. I don't want to murder your name, so I'm not going to mention the last name. Seun is a gender and inclusion technical advisor with over a decade of experience in international development, focusing on gender equity, public health, and digital inclusion. She's currently at Save the Children South Sudan. Seun leads initiatives integrating gender mainstreaming and resilience into humanitarian and development programs. I hope I didn't murder your profile, Seun. How are you doing today?
Okay, I'm good, thank you. And how are you, Agatha?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this with us today and for making time for it. Actually, it's a Saturday, and I'm sure there are many other things you could be doing this time. So thank you very much.
No worries.
Awesome. Am I missing anything from your profile? I feel like I'm missing anything. Do you want to add to that introduction? What you do, children? Just give us a little more.
Yeah. You're not missing anything. I think like you said, my career has been decade long. I started in nutrition. I trained as a nutritionist. And so I was working on policy. So most people, when they hear nutrition, they're like, teach me, should I eat a banana? I'm like, I've never done clinical nutrition. I influence policies, helping countries with malnutrition. So I did that for 10 years. And then for the past 3 years, I've been doing things around youth engagement and gender equality. So yeah, I've worked with the UN. I've worked with governments, consulting with governments, and then more recently with an ING, Save the Children.
That's so awesome. You're living all of our dreams, I tell you. Okay, so I know you've shared a little about your career in nutrition, but can you share more about your background and how you built an interest in international development, which is exactly why we're here today?
Thanks, Agatha, and well done. I think you have a phenomenal platform, and what you're doing for our generation and the next generation is amazing. So well done. I wish I had this when I was starting off my career. It would have probably reduced my
stress levels.
So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I started with a passion for addressing social inequalities, right? I have parents who were in the sector, funny enough. I think that kind of helped me. But we didn't have those conversations about, you must work in international development. My mom was a professor of gender, and watching her, navigate her career and everything, I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. I went to university. The options for me after graduating were more along the lines of academia or research or clinical work. And I thought, I don't want to do teaching. I don't think I'm very patient for teaching. Clinical, I find it really boring. What else can I do? So I had, when you have an idea at the tip of your tongue and navigating to my parents' career and my passion, that is, where everything sort of the math suddenly started mathing. And so with my passion for addressing social inequalities, which drew me into advocacy work early on, over time I transitioned into international development, particularly focusing, like I mentioned, on maternal child care and adolescent nutrition, then gravitating towards gender inclusion because I wanted to provide large-scale solutions. So in a nutshell, my interest was sparked by seeing how targeted interventions could transform entire communities, especially in fragile contexts, as we have in some parts of Nigeria and currently in South Sudan that I work in. So basically that's how I built my interest, and that's also been my background. I haven't worked anywhere else apart from international development. So still, it's something that I wanted to do. Eventually, when I knew this is what I wanted to do, I was very determined and headstrong in making sure that I have a career in this area.
Those all sound like very serious issues that would plague countries in Africa. So have you only worked in South Sudan? Have you worked in Nigeria before?
Yes, I've worked in Nigeria. The length of my career has been in Nigeria. I worked in the UK. I worked in other countries in West Africa as well. But the most time I've spent being in my career has been in Nigeria. Yeah.
That's so cool. I mean, one of the things I really admire about the international development space is how you have the flexibility to travel and see the world through other people's eyes. So that's really awesome. And we'll get back to the numbers later, and your experience from working with women and children. What are the numbers looking like, especially for Africa? But for now, what are your roles and responsibilities at your current role? And what would you say has been the biggest challenge in the field for you, especially?
Okay. So one thing I like about my career is no day is the same, right? That is really exciting. I don't really experience monotonous activities in the work that I do. So my typical day involves a mix of doing strategy and field work. So I could be in meetings aligning gender inclusion strategies with the government and other donor agencies across programs, or I'm in the community working directly with local partners, working directly with our beneficiaries who are women and children, to know what their needs are and co-design solutions together. So I also spend time mentoring my team and reviewing progress on key projects, ensuring that we're both meeting both programmatic and community goals. So basically, a typical day is not really typical in the sense that it's very flexible. I could be, in the parliament with the speaker, and then the next day I could be in the field, struggling with a goat who stole my snacks, because I'm in the deep community. So that's that's what my work day is like. Yeah.
I love that. But I also want to circle back to your work around women and children. Would you say experiencing this firsthand and trying to provide solutions across these problem areas has made you a feminist? Because I'm hearing all of these things and I'm like, there's no way I wouldn't be a feminist if I had to deal with these issues one-on-one every other day.
Yeah. No, I 100% am a feminist, and being a feminist is very passionate. Is something that is imbibed in my core being. Like I said, my mom was a gender professor. I come from a family of 4 girls. So right from a young age, my mom has instilled in us, your voice matters, literally. Like, you should never cower down for anybody. But she did that in a very balancing way where I wasn't, having negative feelings or hatred towards the other gender. But in my job, it's very tough not to have some kind of resentment, And one thing that has helped me stay grounded in being a feminist, but yet not being an angry female, has been the fact that I know that life sometimes throws different, challenges, and also my faith. My faith is something that keeps me grounded, and I'm always able to go back to that. And it sort of gives me the kind of equilibrium that I need. So, not to waffle along, to answer your question directly, it's made me a very strong feminist. Last week, I was working with women farmers in a community and linking them to markets. These are women who farm. They've been widowed by the war. They're the head of the household in their family. The society doesn't even recognize them as a demographic. There's nothing that is catering to these women in terms of welfare in a community. They don't really fit in a cookie cutter mold.
Right.
For being attractive for government support or being, a figure in society. So these women are sort of like a silent part of the population. And that is part of my work, to bring these women out and provide support that caters to them. So I'm creating linkages for women who necessarily would not be regarded in society, and making sure that their voice matters, because they're strong pillars. I mean, there's a saying that you empower a woman, you empower the entire nation.
Absolutely.
And I don't say that because I'm saying one of these aspire to inspire quotes. I'm saying that because it's evidence-backed. Most people see that in their household when their mom is they see the effect of having a mother who has financial autonomy, or is empowered, and you see the effect on the children. I mean, it's a direct relationship between that. So it's working in this sector has really strengthened my feminist views, but also helped me really balance the fact that, because of the years of inequality, I even in my work, I remember when I first started, a lot of my colleagues would say, she's the women's leader.
I knew it was going to be women's leader. They call all of us women leader.
And one thing I had to tell them is that, hang on, every time I have to do this little prelude to either my speaking engagements or my presentation, saying,
right,
gender is for men, women, boys, and girls. We mustn't forget boys and girls, because in Africa especially, we grew up with the notion that we should just do for children. They don't necessarily have to be involved in decisions we make for them. But the world is changing right now, and we need to ensure, evidence has shown that children really need to be considered as individuals themselves. So I start with the prelude that we work for men, women, boys, and girls. However, we have a lot of emphasis on women and girls, especially girls, honestly. Sometimes I go to bed and my mind is just doing too much, thinking about how can I help the girl child. I'm thinking of, ensuring that we protect them from gender-based violence. I'm also thinking that we have to make sure they're digitally included. I need to make sure there's financial literacy. So all of these, And so, without sounding like a broken record, I always tell people that there have been years of inequalities towards women and girls, like years. So for us, I use this analogy of the hand. We're playing catch up. Women and girls are here not because of their genetic dispositioning, not because they're less than, but because society has not really valued them. So with initiatives like what we do at Save the Children, and my work is that we're trying to play catch up, trying to bring the women to a level where the men are, right? And then respectfully ensuring that we're carrying along the men and the boys, because we've seen in a lot of countries like Kenya, and in the Western world, in Europe and America, because of these inequalities for women, there have been a lot of programs, either through the government or through donors and individuals, to strengthen women empowerment and women's education. And then you find that a lot of women are educated, they're earning their keep, they're being very inspiring. The other day I was listening to Michelle Obama and I was just in awe, things like that. And because there's been so much emphasis on the women and girls, they're leaving the men and boys behind. So these women and girls don't have equal partners when it comes to playing the field. We're operating on different wavelengths because there's been emphasis on the girl from home. Your mom is teaching you about personal hygiene. She's teaching you how to take care of the home. She's teaching you how to be respectful. She's teaching you how to be mindful of people's views. And then the boy is just left to his own devices. And the saying comes, boys will be boys, It's crazy. And then it affects women later on in life, because if you're looking to get a partner, you can't find somebody who is of that wavelength with you, because there hasn't been much investment in the boy and the male child as there has been in the female, So with me, as much as we're trying to play catch up, we're also trying to carry the men and boys along, so that we're not having issues where you have in communities where I work, where we're empowering women to be financially independent, and then they realize, I don't need this man anymore. He's been dragging me down, and then we have increased cases of gender-based violence, divorce, unintended consequences of our empowerment program. And we thought, we can't do this. We can't put these women at risk further, because we're trying to build them up. What we're doing now is carrying the men and the boys along, right? Creating programs for them that would also cater to their needs, but emphasizing on what the direct needs of the women are. So
I love that. I actually especially love that you're passionate about what you do, because I know a lot of people that go into the international development space just for the name of it, for the sake of it. But finding people who are actually very passionate about it on the ground, doing the actual work, is amazing. Well done to you. Well done. Well done. Okay, so before we move on to the part where other people learn their mistakes, what to do, what not to do about getting into the international development space, I want to ask, what has been the wildest finding you've found in the course of doing your work so far in the last 10 years? What has been that moment you're like, wow, this is crazy, we have to find a solution to this?
Oh my God, there's so many, Agatha. I don't know how many hours we have.
What can you imagine?
There's so many. But I think I would speak about one thing in terms of cultural complexities. One challenge that I've found that is really glaring, especially in the international development space, And when you work in different countries, we can use Nigeria, our country, as a perfect example because we have so many tribes, over 200 tribes, right? And each tribe has their own peculiarities. And then in my own case, where I'm promoting gender equality in a conservative setting, it's quite difficult, where people see you as somebody who hates men. That is such a false narrative about feminists or women who are into gender equality. It doesn't mean we tolerate their nuances, but there's no hate there. We're catering for both men, women, boys, and girls. So I think for me, I was able to overcome this challenge by building trust and collaborating closely with community leaders. I can never overemphasize the importance of community, especially in the region that we are in Africa. Community is like the bedrock of everything we do. We seek our parents' opinion. We seek the opinion of our thought leaders. We seek the opinion of people that we hold in highest regard. So how I sort of overcame this challenge was by building trust and collaborating closely with community leaders who eventually have become or are on the road to becoming advocates for our work.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's mainly about understanding local dynamics and using that insight to guide change from within. That means, going back to another section of your question, which in international development, perhaps maybe trying to get into this field, right? What are some wildest things? It's very difficult, honestly. As somebody who has been in this field for 10 plus years, I also am on the job market. I have a career plan that every 3 to 5 years, I want to navigate another area in my career, be it within another organization, another level of programming, another sector, right? So even though I'm in the sector, I do understand the challenges of getting into the sector, or even going around within the sector is quite challenging. I find that it's challenging because the same set of people are often being recycled. This is really in a bad way because I think they're good hands, right? And somebody who's has built a reputation or who has built years of working hard in this particular area, chances are a recruiter would take that person on as opposed to a new person, right? It's very difficult for people to enter the sector, especially if you're coming in as entry-level recruits. Some organizations have things like graduate programs. In the UN, there's junior professional programs, JPP, things like that. I know that African Development Bank, the AU, they have similar, World Bank, they have similar sort of initiatives. And because there's so many people on the job market, it's almost like pulling teeth. You apply for a role. I remember my first job when I was going into the UN. I had eventually made the cuts, and when I joined in, my recruiter was like, "You beat the odds because over 5,000 people applied for this position."
That's wild.
Over 30 people were longlisted from that 5,000, and then 5 people were shortlisted, and then you came out, defeated. And this is me coming from an international INGO background. Now joining into the UN. So coming into the development space afresh and navigating your way within it is equally difficult and challenging, right? So not saying that even if you have experience in the field and you're trying to come in, it has its difficulties. But don't lose hope, whoever is listening to this. I think consistency is key. I believe in probability when it comes to job applications, and also being intentional. You position yourself, you do your research, you keep applying, make it a full-time job for yourself without making it an idol in itself. Obviously, enjoy your life, do other things, but also be dedicated to it. Networking, really tailoring and knowing your research as to the job you're applying to and the organization. So Agatha, I think I've answered like 10 questions in one.
Oh, I love it. No apologies necessary. So I actually, when you said your recruiter spoke to you about 5,000 people having applied for the job,
Yeah.
and then you longlisted and shortlisted, what would you say, in your own opinion, was your competitive advantage? Why you got the role? What would you say you did different? Maybe one or two persons can learn from it. What would you say your academic qualifications were that gave you strategic advantage over the others?
Okay. I think one thing for me would be, I think I was very intentional in my applications. So I have a folder with a hard drive that contains all the applications I've done in my life. And I have over 30 folders with subfolders and everything titled according to the job description, the job title and the organization.
You're making me look up to life. Come on, stop.
I have that hard drive somewhere here. I don't know where it is, but yeah, I'm very intentional. So you have to be intentional. That's number one. You need to go for gold, as the saying says, right? You want something so bad, you put your all in it, right? So you are making sure on that angle of applications, you are being very strict, you are being determined, And to take you back a little bit, you need to really streamline what you want and pursue it intentionally. Do I want to work in international development? Why? Why do I want to work? What do I have to give? And what do I want to gain? Right? Those are things that you need to ask. What am I passionate about? And what am I good at? You marry these things together and then you start streamlining your focus into what organization you want to work in, where, what do you want to do, and how long do you want to work there. So these are like branches of the intentionality that I'm talking about, right? And then you don't go into it blindly and say, oh yeah, I'm just working in international development. There are a lot of people like that in this sector as well, where you don't really have a focus. And then at the end of a couple of years, you're just floating, above, trying to stay above water. And another thing one needs to know is that the international development sector moves. It is very fluid. What was a key focus in 1990 something is not the focus right now. A few years ago, before I joined the sector, HIV/AIDS programming was the hot ticket, right? If you were doing HIV/AIDS, that would be a big entryway for you. Then they changed to malaria, and then it was around nutrition and public health. And then COVID came, and now every country has their feminist policy. So people are looking at gender equality, disability inclusion, among other things, right? Food security, food systems, all of that. That being said, it's important for you that when you're doing your research, know what the hot ticket area is, right, within the international development. What's the trend? Do a lot of research. What are they leaning towards now, and how can I offer value in that area? So these are sort of the things aligned with intentionality. Yeah. Another thing for me is I will take it back to my degree as well. That's why, for me, I think mine was just fate in a way, fate's destiny. Because I remember in secondary school, I don't know if that's still the trend now. I graduated many years ago. When you're in secondary school and you're navigating from junior to senior secondary school, you often like a guidance counselor who would tell you, okay, based on your academic qualifications, this is the path you should go. Although that process has its limitations in the sense that they're just assessing your academic performance, and they're not really seeing other soft skills that you bring to the table or other areas that you can add value to your career or your life future. It kind of helps you start thinking from that age, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? For me, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, right? And I just started doing like an elimination process where, I like medicine, but I don't really like medicine. I like this. I want to work with people. I want to work with women, which sort of now narrowed me down into the degree that I did. And I have a master's in public health. It's a very open umbrella for you to navigate in a lot of areas. With public health, you can do core health, you can do nutrition, you can do gender, you can do so many things, literally. So it's quite an open field for you to really navigate and see, this is where I want to narrow down in my career, because you have that platform. right? I'm not plugging people to do public health, do whatever your passion is, but I'm just speaking from experience that's sort of how to answer your question, how my degree positioned me. So yeah, I think these are the things that I was intentional about with what master's degree I was doing, and how and that's also something that is really important in the development space. Master's is sort of like a prerequisite, for that. Yeah, and I know some people have been lucky to have joined. When I was in the UN, I worked with a colleague who joined the UN when she was 18. She didn't have a degree, and she did a degree while she was on the job. So it's just to show you how times have changed. They would never recruit anybody now who doesn't have a degree, right? But she was fortunate to have that platform back in the day. Now they're asking you for master's. Some people are asking you for PhD. Some people are asking you for specialized courses and certifications, that you can apply. But that's why you have to do your research and stay on the trend. The second thing that I did for me it was networking, right? So I went to uni in the UK, my undergrad and my master's both in the UK. And I was working for an organization, an international development organization in the UK. And that was my first job from volunteering I did volunteer with that organization for a year, and they eventually offered me a position. While I was there, I was supporting programs that were in Sierra Leone, in Bangladesh, in African countries, and in Asia, right? And I was thinking, hang on, this is my first job. I don't really have a lot of experience, and I'm supporting these countries that are outside while I'm in the UK. But it didn't make sense to go and get hands-on development experience, right? Yeah. A developing country. Then I thought, what other country or what better country than my own? So let me move back to Nigeria and start getting field work. And obviously, with a lot of jobs you apply for, they ask, do you have international development experience? Every Nigerian should say yes, as long as you're working, because it's a developing country.
Love that. Thank you so much for that.
So you should definitely say yes, because you navigating your everyday is part of, the whole sequence, And so for me, what I did before I moved back was I started networking. I started going to evening events. Sometimes universities or organizations do things called open days or networking evenings, where you go and, hear somebody speak about their role in the sector, which I did. The other thing I did was I started doing this. I started emailing people in the sector. Right? And to my surprise, I got responses. That's actually how I got my first job, and that's why I moved back to Nigeria. And so I got responses from people who I felt were really big people. They would never respond to me. And this is something to the young people. Perhaps when you email somebody who is in the sector and they don't respond to you on time or in the way you want, or they don't respond at all, it's not that they see you as a nuisance, it's that there's so much, like every adult knows, everyone knows that there's so many demands and you are constantly on the move. There's so much. So for me as a young person, I had this perception that these people will not respond to me. They're too busy, they don't care. But they ended up responding. And you know why? One of them told me they responded, because from the networking events I went to, this person said, when you're applying for a job, you randomly come across a complimentary card that was given to you at an event, and you want to email that person, saying, oh, I met you. It was lovely meeting you at so and so event. I'm in the market looking for a job. It's always good to go and do a bit of research about that person and see what they've done. And I don't know if this still works, because this was like almost 12 years ago, but it worked for me, right? And what I did was that I did a research about this particular man that I had met, and I went online and I did research about him and the work that he's been doing. And I came across a paper and projects that he had been working on that were really of interest to me. At that time, it was about immunization and vitamin A supplementation for nutrition, all of that. And so that was the subject line of my email, saying, I came across I can't remember the exact subject, but it was something along the lines of, I came across, this paper and program you've been doing. I really commend it. And I read the paper, right? to show that I was really interested in this person, because you can't say, oh, I love your paper, and you really don't know. So I read and I got out 3 strong areas that really stood out to me. I like the fact that it's centered around women and children. I like the fact that you're involved in the community. I like the fact that it's sustainable, things along those lines. And this man replied me. And from there, we started exchanging emails, and he said, oh, okay, so what did you say you wanted to do? I'll advise you to move back to Nigeria, and come. There's this consultancy that we can offer you. It's temporary, but however, it will get your foot in the door. And he was right. So with that, I came in to do a consultancy. And another thing I want to mention is, don't be scared to go out of your comfort zone. Don't be scared to go to different parts of Nigeria or parts of the world. It's international development, as the name says, right? Nigeria in itself is like how many African countries combined together? Literally, Lagos is like South Sudan, where I live right now, right? And so within your own country, you can, if you get a job in Kaduna, please go. Like for me, my first job coming from England was in Ekiti State. Right? And this is me, British girl. I haven't, lived in Nigeria in a number of. I'm like, oh my God, what am I coming into? But there was something that was propelling me, and thank God for support systems. Like I said, my parents had worked in the field, off and on at that point, and they encouraged me. They said, no, you should do this. I also tried to form relationships with people in Nigeria at that time who were in the same sector, and they're like, yeah, that's the way the sector is. Go there, you'll be supported, in terms of your safety. Your organization supports you, but also you take personal safety measures, and everybody has their belief system. My faith, like I mentioned, my faith is very strong for me. I made prayers and I said, God, you wouldn't take me to where you don't want me to be, and I believe that you will guide me. So I cannot, equate a lot of my career journeys to myself. I believe strongly that my faith has helped me, but I had this conviction to therefore be able to navigate this path and, go ahead with it. So yeah, my first job was in Ekiti State, where I stayed for like 3 months, doing proper field. It was almost like, oh, you wanted field research? Here is your field research. We're going into communities, home to homes, local government. I remember one time we were going to one local government, and my team member said, this local government is known for having witches. Oh, are you sure? Are you sure you want to go there? And we were trying to tell our coordinator at that time, and he's like, are you guys for real? What does that have to do with your work? Please, can you go ahead with your work and do what you have to do? And we went and we we did that. So please think your comfort zone does not do much for you. It is a nice feeling to be in a comfort zone, right? However, it doesn't take you any far, doesn't do much for you. So please, if the job is not in Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, and it's somewhere else, by all means take it. You will not be in that place forever. Right. This is me now working in another organization, building around 7 years in this particular NGO. I was working in Nigeria. And one day my boss comes to meet me and he goes, Sean, would you like to work in Maiduguri, Borno State for 3 months or 6 months? And like me, I'm telling you that I have this conviction inside me according to with where I'm supposed to be. And I didn't hesitate. I didn't consult with my family, and I said yes in that moment. My colleagues who heard afterwards went agog. Sean, are you crazy? Why would you accept that? Why would you push this? Of all places? And it was the height of, the insurgency at that time. Me, I was just thinking, oh my God, this is good for my career. I'm having emergency experience in a humanitarian duty station in my own country, because with Nigeria in the international development space, Nigeria is classified as both a development program as well as humanitarian or emergency program, right? So in places like Lagos, you must have development programs, but when you go to the Far East, like in Adamawa, Yola, Yobe, Borno State, because of the insurgencies, and more recently Sokoto, Kano, Kaduna, those sort of places attempt to be emergency locations. So because I thought, I need this experience, I'm going to go. So I had to then convince my family that I'm in my right senses to go to Borno in the height of the insurgency. It was very tough. my mother called a pastor to pray for me. And this is my mother who had an understanding of the sector, right?
African parents.
So my dad was trying to, use the whole manly thing to, carry it, but I could hear the fear in his voice. My sisters were like, "Oh my God, this girl is crazy. She's so stubborn. What is her problem? Blah, 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 blah," And, they had a fear that, okay, if you go to Maiduguri for 3 months or 6 months and you come back to your role in Abuja, are you sure your role will be there? And I said, yeah, my organization guaranteed me that. That's a contractual organization. If they don't meet their end, there's going to be consequences, So I did go. And let me tell you, that one move heralded the next phase of my career. When I then eventually was going into larger organizations like the UN, that was one thing, the recruiter mentioned to me. We recruited you because you also had emergency experience, right? So these are things that we also need to be mindful of, and these are things that I've lived. So similar experience in me moving to South Sudan as well, right? When you hear it in the news, you think, "Oh my God, war torn, it's crazy, it's this, it's this."
What are you doing there?
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm here, I'm not only surviving, I'm thriving. So it must not be that bad, right? Yeah. So these are sort of things that I was mindful of, and I think we have to be intentional about. Yeah.
Yeah, I love when an intentional person has please. I love when an intentional person has done intentional stuff to get to where they are, and it has actually worked for them. I'm actually very, very proud of your career journey so far. And it just says to me the amount of intentionality that it takes to reach your goals. So everyone watching this, please be intentional, whatever it is that you want, especially as regards the international development space. It's not wait fall on your laps. You know that because you've tried over and over and over and over again. It takes some level of madness, if you will, and intentionality to get to exactly where you want. The question I have for you following the expose you just gave now is, how has this travel, you're in Abuja, you're in Maiduguri, you're in South Sudan, how have these what I would say is the perk of your job, the traveling, how has it affected your personal relationships? Moving around, it appears like you're not stable in one place. How has it affected you on a personal basis now?
I think maybe start with how it's affected me professionally. I think the learning never stops, like I said, whether it's adapting to emerging trends or responding to unexpected crises, I'm learning constantly, right? Personally, knowing that my work directly impacts vulnerable populations keeps me going. Also, there's a very deep sense of fulfillment in being part of a global network working towards a shared goal. So like I mentioned, I have a program that I manage, that is empowering women farmers. And last week, we were able to link them to a big hotel chain that these women will now start supplying the chain farm produce. Awesome. They want cassava, they want maize. Honestly, I shed tears because I'm like, this is seeing the end goal of my work, and not only my work, that of my colleagues and the ones who've come before me. So it's really gratifying, it's really fulfilling. Personally, it affects you positively and negatively. I need to be very honest with that, right? Positively in the sense that you are very culturally aware. You meet a lot of people from different parts of the country, of the world, right? And so you are forming networks, you're forming relationships, with people from the Philippines, from Iraq, from Iran, sharing notes, bonding over what commonalities you have and differences as well. Those are the perks. Personally, it can make you feel homesick at times, right? No matter how much you've done this, you miss out on key moments with your families, right? Where, there's a family wedding or, there's a birthday party or just your friends, they're going out for brunch together. And you're like, oh my God, I wish I was part of that, But at the same time, it shows, I guess you have to put yourself first as well. You take your leaves, you take breaks, whatever you have. And when you're back in your home country, you make sure that you spend time with the ones you love, you soak in time with them and all of that. So I think those are some of the perks of working in this.
Love that. Yeah. Love that. So I'm going to ask you a very personal question. You can plead the fifth and decide not to answer. But what has your earnings jump looked like transitioning between all of these jobs? You can give us percentages, so you don't have to give exact figures. I believe that's one of the steps.
Yeah, it is one of the perks, and I have to be honest. In some cases, 100% jumps, going from one role to another. And for me, like I said, you have to be intentional. Like I can't be earning 10 naira last year, and I'm going to take a job that will be earning me 9 naira. No, there are certain reasons that you have to put yourself first. I'm passionate about this job, about my career, but I also need, money. We have bills to pay, right? So I think for me, my earnings, I've had jobs where there's been 100% increase. I've had, yes, different roles as well. Yeah.
Love that. So is there a space for everyone? Because we hear about the gender, we hear about humanity and all of that, but people in tech, marketing, engineering, accounting, do they have a space in the international development space, or they should just go and focus on what to pay them?
Sorry, Agatha, I missed something when it came to the perks. Another perk of this job, the traveling and the exposure, either within Nigeria, within your country, or to other countries. You get to see the way people live, and it really helps you to be culturally aware, right? We're less biased, we're less judgmental, we're more understanding. It sort of makes you a better person, honestly. You're more accommodative in that regard. Now to answer your question in terms of, yes, there is space for everybody. There is space for everybody. So if you're in tech, if you're in marketing, if you're in engineering, what you need to do is start finding intersections between your field and development needs, right? Right now in the international development space, there's something called T for D, tech for development. So like for tech, we're looking at digital inclusion or marketing for behavioral change campaigns. If you're in communication, if you're a content creation expert or content creator rather, there's an intersectionality. We have to create visibility for the donors that fund us. We also have to raise awareness through advocacy, right? So that is where your need comes in. Engineering, we do a lot of construction of boreholes, of roads, of schools, So one thing I would tell people is to always find an intersections between your field and development needs. That way you will learn, you also need to learn the language of development. So I would suggest that you consider taking relevant courses or getting certifications in that area. Yeah. One hurdle that they might experience if you're coming into the sector new, and even within the sector, if you're jumping from another organization to another, is the operational side, right? Every organization has their own operational systems. Every donor that you work with, like donor requirements, community engagement strategies, every organization has their own modalities that they use, but that's a nuance that everybody faces even when you're within the sector, right? So one thing I would tell people who are out, like our Gen Zs, our tech gurus, our fluid people in terms of their job market, find intersections between your field and development needs. That would really help. Yeah,
100%. Thank you very much for that, Seun. I was going to touch earlier on internships and volunteer experience, but I feel like you already did a good job explaining how you first got into the field by volunteering. I was also going to dabble into mentorship, but from your narration, your parents sort of indirectly or directly provided some form of mentorship for you because you saw them work in the field and you got inspired to do that. Okay, so let's move on to your future plans, especially in the international development space, and what areas you think people should prioritize when it comes to interest in the international development space.
Okay. Agatha, do you mind if I just say a few lines on the mentorship, right?
Please, go ahead.
Apart from my parents being sort of mentors for me, I've been fortunate to have a few people in the sector who were already in high levels of their career to guide me. Especially the professional who gave me my first break when I was moving back to Nigeria. It's been a decade-long mentor for me. Mentorship is critical for growth in every area of your life. It offers you guidance. It opens doors for you that you might not even know exist, like in my case. So it's important to find a mentor. Some of you might already have, some of you might know. Do your research about them. Look within your network or professional associations. Don't be afraid to reach out to somebody whose work inspires you. Like they say, it's lonely at the top. When they get higher, they hardly get any accolades for what they've been doing, right? They hardly get, recognition. Well, they get international recognition, but like a little thank you or a little you inspire me goes a long way. So if you meet somebody who you really admire and you want to be a mentor for you, you reach out to them and, tell them why they inspire you and what you want to
Yeah.
learn from, because a lot of people have the mindset of giving back to the next generations. And another thing I want to say is that sometimes mentors come from unexpected places, like a colleague who's just a step ahead, or a colleague who's on the same level with you can also be a mentor. Perhaps they've seen things that you haven't seen or experienced. I have a colleague who we're working together and on the same level with me, but she had worked in this country longer, and she honestly helped me navigate so much. And she's somebody that I also call as a mentor as well. So that is that's a mentorship. To answer your question in terms of looking ahead about what my future in international development looks like, I am excited by the shift towards more localized approaches. So in the international development space, they're looking towards more localized, sustainable approaches when it comes to clean energy, just transition, when it comes to climate, looking at even funding, are we looking at innovative funding? I always use this example about Davido. I don't know how successful it's been when he was doing a crowdfunding for his birthday and asked people to give him a birthday present, and then he donated that money to charities. That is innovative financing, right? So we need to be looking at those sort of things. I don't know the sustainability of that. Please don't quote me. But that was an interesting way of fundraising. There's also an increased use of technology for data-driven decisions, looking at a lot of data analysis, looking at a lot of big data, things like that, because a lot of our work is around evidence generation. If you can prove that there is a need in a particular area, you need to ensure you have the data to back it, and then you have the visibility, right, to attract donor funding, to attract interest. So there's an increased use of technology for data-driven solutions. I think I have to also mention that for young professionals, there's a huge opportunity to bring fresh perspectives, right? I like the way young people think. They're very, because they haven't really been in this in a particular space or in a particular box. Your mind can be very limiting as well. Because I've done this for a long time, I'm now like a one-trick pony. But when you have young people who bring fresh perspectives, they're an added advantage. So I always talk about this: a marriage made in heaven, fresh ideas meets experience. It is the best recipe if both generations are being accommodative. That's another kettle of fish. Anyway, for another discussion, talking about transgenerational, intergenerational cohesion. But when you bring a fresh young person with fresh ideas, and you bring somebody with years of experience, and they're working together, it's a recipe for success. So when I talk about there have been huge opportunities to bring fresh perspectives, we look at the area of climate action. There's been a lot of visibility, interest in climate, really. When you have things like COP, you have so many sponsors. There's a lot of funding in the climate area. That's another area young people need to look at. Don't say you don't have experience. You live in a country, especially those in Nigeria, that is riddled by a lot of climate change, right? From flooding to heat waves. We're experiencing it. How have you coped in your own house when your area is flooded? What do? Do you work with your chairman to say, let's clear the gutters today? Or with heat waves, do you say, let's start planting trees, or let's create shades for market women? Little things that, you don't have to have a big NGO. What are you doing in your community? And how can you link that to the development needs that are coming up? Digital inclusion, like I mentioned, there's a lot of reliance on technology for data, technology for the work that we do. It's really important. There's so many examples of solutions. And then social entrepreneurship as well, which are all gaining momentum globally. So these are areas, like I said, I can't underestimate the power of research. You need to keep researching and knowing what is happening in this area.
Thank you so much, Sheon. So as a closing thought, I know this entire session has been leading with a lot of advice, but what final advice do you have for people either moving from other fields into the international development space, or even people transitioning within the space? What final advice do you have for us including me?
Yeah. Or you also need to give me advice at the end as well. So yeah, we're all learning. We're all learning. So I think for me, it would be to stay curious and be willing to start small, right? Stay curious, find out, have an appetite for information when it comes to whatever area you're passionate about. Curiosity brings a lot of new information. It helps you even understand the need that there is in that sector and the gap that you provide. I will link this back to my faith again, and I hope you don't mind, Agatha.
No, absolutely.
Everybody is created for a definitive purpose. So Agatha's purpose in life is different from that of Sheol, and vice versa. So there will always be a gap that only Agatha can provide.
Yeah.
Right? Even though there's a million people in the same space, there's a niche, there's a particular area that only you would be able to provide. Find out what that is and find out how it can translate to functioning in the international development sector. I know it sounds very abstract, very vague, but if you really go deeper, you might have some more meaning into what I've said. So that's where the curiosity comes in. Stay curious, know what the trends are. Don't be scared to start small. Like I said, I started as a volunteer for 1.5 years. I wasn't paid anything. These days, volunteers are paid nice money. I was paid a bus ticket and a cold sandwich every day.
Don't kill me.
So transportation to get to my office and back to my house, and lunch. That was my payment for 1.5 years. And I was very happy because at that time it was getting volunteer work in that organization was like a hot ticket. So I was so happy to get that, So don't be afraid to start small, and don't be afraid to start by yourself as well. If you start something like what you're doing is phenomenal, Agatha. Like, you didn't have to wait for anyone to give you a platform. You saw the opportunity and you took it. So that would be my recommendation to young people. I don't like to say advice because it sounds very out of touch and like an older person who doesn't know what's happening. But that would be my suggestion. Young people consider that. Start in whatever area it is. The world is so amazing right now because you have social media, the power of social media, TikToks, all of that. Start something with your friends and it would blossom into something else. I think I'll just round up by saying that those early experiences often shape your career trajectory. Being curious and starting small. I think it's important to focus on building a strong foundation in a specific area, but remain open to learning about other aspects of development, right?
Yeah.
If there's an area that's your niche, streamline that area, but don't be a one trick pony, as they say, right? And also don't be a jack of all trades, master of none, right? Have a specific area that you hone. That is your area, you're owning that skill, but also you're open to learning other aspects that would complement that specific area that you are leaning towards. The sector is ever evolving, so adaptability and continuous learning would be your strongest assets. I remember when I was graduating from university, and you know how they bring perhaps like an alumni, like somebody to come and speak, alumnus of the university this was the head of the MI5, that's the British intelligence, that was who came to speak. This was almost 15 years ago. And I remember what he said, it sticks with me. He says, the most successful people in the world are the most adaptive people, right? So you have to be ever evolving, like the way the sector is evolving, keep evolving without losing your specific area and interest, but adapting that area to suit the needs that are arising, and honestly, that would be the most strongest assets that anyone can have. So that's my 2 cents for.
I love that. That's more than 2 cents. That's like 10 cents. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I will just add to that there are people that are going to be watching this saying, okay, I don't have the background. I don't know the front. I would say start from wherever you know, because they think of someone who has put so much effort or who has had the exposure before. You can start from wherever you are. You can start taking courses, telling to people. You can start reading whatever it is you need to do to level up. And then when you're the best at what you do, opportunity to find you eventually, as long as you're putting yourself out there. Thank you so much, Jane, for doing this.
Sure.
Taking the time out of your day to come. Thank you so much. Say someone is listening and wants an advice and say, okay, I feel like I should send Shegun a DM. Where can they find you?
So please, you can share my email address with them if if they don't mind. I'm on Twitter. I'm Seun Development on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn, Seun Okediran on LinkedIn. And so those are areas that you can check me out. Yes.
You can reach her on LinkedIn and on Twitter. Okay, that's cool. Yep. Thank you so much, Seun. Let me release so much. Enjoy the rest.
Well done today. Yeah, amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Sustainability Matters. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget, new videos premiere on our YouTube channel every Wednesday. Follow us across our social media pages to stay updated on the great content we have for you. Until next time, stay green and stay inspired.